I moved back to my childhood neighborhood a few weeks ago. My job was gone, and I needed a break. I unpacked my things in my grandmother's old house, hoping it would feel like home. But everything felt off. The houses seemed lonely, and the yards were wild with weeds. I started to wonder if I made a mistake. On my first night, I noticed flickering lights in the neighbor's yard. I thought maybe they were having a party. I grabbed the curtain and peeked out, but nobody was there. Shadows danced along the fence, and my heart raced. I felt like something was watching me. It made me uncomfortable, so I pulled the curtain shut and tried to shake it off. But sleep didn't come easy that night. The next morning, I found an old rusted toy car on my porch. It looked just like one I had as a kid. I was confused. I didn't remember leaving it there. I picked it up. It was cold, like it had been outside forever. I turned it over in my hands, but something about it made me feel uneasy. I didn't want to think about how it got there. A few days later, I found a faded photograph leaning against my door. It was of me, around 7 years old, beaming next to my grandmother. My heart sank. Who was leaving these things? I hadn't told anyone I was back. Then, there were drawings on my porch, messy crayon sketches that looked like moments from my childhood. One was of my friends and me playing in the backyard. Another showed me hiding in a tree. I felt my memories slipping out of reach, like they were fading away. Why were these appearing now? As I sat with these strange things, I began to sense that someone was watching me. Every time I looked out the window or stepped outside, a chill would run down my spine. I glanced around, hoping to see a neighbor, but there was always just silence. It felt lonely, and a strange hollow feeling filled me. Then came a stormy night. The power went out, and I remembered those shadows from last week. What if they were out there again? My heart pounded. I tried to breathe through the panic. It must be just the wind. Then I heard it, soft and whispering. Amanda. My breath froze in my throat. I spun around, but there was nobody there. A part of me shouted to leave, to get out fast, but I didn't want to. I had to find out what was happening. Suddenly, I realized I was deep in something I didn't understand. This neighborhood that felt like home was now a haunting maze of memories. And I didn't know how far I was willing to go to find out the truth. The next morning, I decided to take a walk. I needed to clear my head. The sun was shining, but it felt like the shadows lingered even in the daylight. As I walked down the familiar streets, I noticed small details I had overlooked before. A swing swayed gently in the breeze at an empty house, and a faint laughter echoed in my mind. It sent a shiver down my spine. I passed by the house on the corner where my childhood friend Jenna used to live. The paint was peeling, and the porch sagged. I hesitated, remembering the fun we had and the secrets we shared. I knocked on the door, hoping someone might still live there. After a moment, I heard footsteps, but when the door opened, it was a stranger, an older woman with a blank stare. "Do you need something?" she asked. I shook my head, barely able to find my voice. "Just looking around." I quickly turned away and headed toward the park. As I walked, I felt that familiar sense of being watched again. I scanned the trees and caught a glimpse of movement, a flash of something up in the branches. I convinced myself it was just a squirrel. But then I saw it. A figure, small and dark, darted between the trees. I stopped, heart racing. Was it a child? I took a step closer, but as I did, the figure disappeared. I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. The urge to find out what it was gnawed at me. I decided to head to the spot where my grandmother's old garden used to be. I remembered spending summers there, digging for worms and letting butterflies land on my fingers. But the garden was gone, overgrown and wild. I felt a sadness wash over me. As I crouched down to examine the ground, I found something buried in the dirt. It took a few minutes to dig it out. When I uncovered it, my heart dropped. It was a small wooden box, decorated with faded, colorful paint. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were more photographs, pictures of me, younger, playing in my grandmother's garden, and other kids I barely recognized. Then I saw a drawing, crumpled and yellowed. It was a crayon drawing of a girl with dark hair and sad, big eyes. "Who are you?" I whispered. In that moment, I felt a wave of grief wash over me. Then I heard it again, my name, soft and insistent. "Amanda." I shot up, panic rising. It sounded closer this time. I looked around, but the place felt deserted. The laughter from before echoed again, confusing me. I wanted to run, but something held me back. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were waiting just for me. I turned quickly, and for a split second, I thought I saw the figure again. This time, it lingered at the edge of the trees, watching me. My heart raced even faster. That's when I realized it wasn't just the familiar memories drawing me in. Something else was lurking, waiting, and whatever it was, it wanted me to remember. I dashed back toward the park entrance, my heart thudding in my chest. Each step felt like a leap of faith, as if I were escaping from something unseen. I glanced back over my shoulder, half expecting to find the figure right behind me, but nothing lingered, just the quiet wind rustling the leaves. As I reached the entrance, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing pulse. I needed to find someone, anyone, who could help me understand what was happening. I decided to head to the library. Knowledge would be my shield against whatever this was. When I arrived, the little bell over the door chimed softly. I stepped inside, greeted by the familiar scent of books and dust. The librarian, Mrs. Lang, looked up from her desk, her expression shifting from neutrality to cordiality. "Amanda, good to see you," she smiled. "What brings you here?" I need to look up some old records, history of the neighborhood, maybe something unusual." I stumbled over my words, unsure how to explain. "Of course," she replied, directing me toward the back room where the archives were kept. "Let me know if you need anything." I squinted at the rows of dusty volumes. I pulled out a book that detailed the area's history, leafing through the pages. Old photos captured unfamiliar faces staring back at me. There were news clippings about disappearances, fires, and strange occurrences. Each detail raised more questions. Then I found it, an article from the late 70s about an unsolved case. A girl, last seen at a local park, went missing one summer afternoon. Her name was Jenna. I felt the air catch in my throat. It couldn't be. Racing thoughts filled my mind. Suddenly, I didn't feel alone in the library. An uneasy chill crept up my spine. I looked around, my instincts on high alert. What I felt was more than just a draft, or the usual quiet of the library. It felt heavier, charged. "Are you all right, dear?" Mrs. Lang's voice broke through my anxious reverie. She was standing a few feet away, scrutinizing my face. "Just fine," I murmured, trying to mask my unease. My gaze dropped back to the newspaper, and a photo caught my attention. It was Jenna, smiling brightly, the same girl from my childhood memories. The resemblance to the drawing was uncanny. An unsettling feeling gnawed at me. Then it hit me. Every time I had heard laughter today, it felt familiar, almost like a beckoning. "Did people ever say anything about strange happenings in the park?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Lang's brow furrowed. "Well, some townsfolk claim to see flickers of movement at dusk, especially near the old trees. They say sometimes it's the children, looking for their playmates." "Children?" I repeated, the lump in my throat growing. "Sometimes they don't want to leave," she said softly, her eyes glancing toward the window as if she saw something. "You must be careful." A sudden noise behind me made me turn sharply. The bell at the door jingled as it swung open. I felt my breath hitch as a shadowed figure stepped inside, too familiar to be ignored. My skin prickled with dread, and I could hardly breathe. That's when everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, consuming the familiar corners of the library and leaving only silence. My mind raced with confusion. Had I fainted? I clutched the edge of the table where I had been standing, willing myself to regain my senses. Gradually, shadows flickered back into view. The lights flickered wildly before stabilizing, but the library felt different now, thicker, more oppressive. I blinked, pushing my hair out of my face. Mrs. Lang was gone. I looked around, panic swelling in my chest. "Mrs. Lang?" My voice echoed softly against the wallpapered stacks. I stepped cautiously through the aisles, scanning for any sign of her. I thought I heard whispers, but they came and went, blending into the background noise of the library. I frowned, trying to convince myself my imagination was working overtime. As I reached the back room, I noticed the door slightly ajar. I felt a strange pull, an urgency to push it open. I hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and creaked it open. Inside, the dim light revealed stacks of boxes and dust-covered artifacts. The air was thick with a musty scent. I hesitated, then ventured deeper, my fingers grazing the spines of old tomes. The curiosity mixed with dread spurred me on. Then I saw it. A large ledger perched precariously on the edge of a table. The words "Missing Persons" were inscribed in fading gold letters on the cover. My heart quickened. I approached it slowly, aware of the risks of what I might uncover. Flipping through the pages, my eyes widened. Name after name, each story growing darker than the last, families torn apart, dreams extinguished. My hands shook as I flipped to a page about Jenna. There was a sketch alongside the details of her disappearance. She looked so alive, vibrant even in a mere drawing. My finger traced the outline of her face, and a chill spread through my body. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I turned sharply, half expecting to see the shadow figure behind me. But nothing was there. The air felt heavy, pulsating with a silent energy. I noticed a name scrawled in the margins. It was the same name I had seen in another article earlier. Colin. My stomach twisted. I remembered my mother whispering stories about Colin when I was a child, the boy who knew things. Suddenly, a soft laugh echoed through the room, sharp and clear. My heart raced as I recognized it. It was the same laughter I had heard earlier, the beckoning sound that had drawn me through the shadows of the park. I froze. "Who's there?" I demanded, trying to sound brave, though fear churned in my gut. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. Then I saw movement among the boxes. Something was stirring, and it was heading toward me. That's when I found my voice again. "Get away from me!" I shouted, backing away toward the door. But the room was now brightening, revealing the figure standing at the edge of the light, a child, with familiar features framed by dark hair. My blood ran cold as recognition hit me. It was Jenna. "Come play," she said, smiling sweetly, but there was something haunting gleaming in her eyes. I stumbled back as panic gripped me. I knew I had to get out of there, not only for my own safety, but for the truth I needed to uncover. Just then, the lights flickered again. I hesitated, the temptation to step closer overwhelming. But the door was still open. I chose to run. I bolted out of the back room, heart pounding in my chest. Each step echoed as I raced through the aisles, desperate to escape the haunting presence of Jenna. The whispers crescendoed around me, morphing into a chaotic chorus that threatened to consume my thoughts. I burst into the main hall of the library, taking a moment to catch my breath. My eyes darted toward the doors, an escape route, but they felt so far away. Shadows danced along the walls, and I could swear I felt cold fingers brushing against my back. "Focus," I muttered to myself. "You need to find Mrs. Lang. The only person I could trust in this madness." I turned towards her office, ready to shake her out of her focus, but doubt coursed through me. What if she was in on this? What if she knew about Jenna and all the names in the ledger? I pressed forward, glancing over my shoulder. The once warm library felt like a cave, housing secrets better left undisturbed. I reached for the office door, but something made me pause. A chance to gather more information was worth the risk. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside. The small room was cluttered, papers scattered on the desk, and the walls lined with awards and certificates. I scanned the surface for any hint of what was happening. Then I noticed a small box tucked under the desk. It was old and dusty, the kind of item that beheld a history of its own. I knelt down to pull it out, my fingers trembling. The lid creaked as I pried it open, revealing an array of photographs inside. My stomach sank. There, among the faces, was Colin. This time he looked older, wiser, and his eyes held a depth of understanding I didn't like. Right next to him was another picture of Jenna, smiling but with a shadow hovering over her. "Why were you here?" I whispered, dread settling into my bones. A rustle behind me made my heart race again. I turned around rapidly, expecting to find someone, or something, waiting for me. Instead, I found a piece of paper that had slipped to the floor. I picked it up. It was an invitation, handwritten. "Are you ready to play?" My blood ran cold. Was this somehow connected to Jenna? I felt the air around me shift, becoming tighter, constricting my thoughts. I had to get out of this room. Just as I stood up, I heard a sound, a low, muffled thud. I turned back toward the door, ready to flee, but it swung open with a force I wasn't prepared for. I gasped as a figure stepped into the room. It was a man, with Colin's face. "Time to play," he said, his voice echoing in the silence. My instincts screamed at me to run again, but something in his gaze held me captive. Then everything went dark. I felt a pull, a force drawing me back, but my body was frozen. Whatever dark game was unfolding had found its next player. I woke up in a dimly lit room, disoriented and struggling to remember how I got there. The air was thick, heavy with an unsettling stillness. I blinked, trying to adjust to the shadows that seemed to loom just out of reach. Panic surged through me as I sat up, the memories flooding back like a tidal wave. "Colin!" I shouted, my voice cracking. But there was only silence. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper, remnants of a once vibrant hue. A single flickering light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting eerie shapes across the floor. I pushed myself off the cold, hard ground and moved cautiously, my heart racing. I stepped forward, each footfall whispering against the floorboards. I had to find a way out. The flickering light caught my eye, and I noticed a door at the far end of the room. It was partially ajar. I approached it, hesitating for a moment. Was this a trap? As I pushed the door open, the rusted hinges creaked loudly, breaking the silence. Beyond lay a narrow hallway lined with more doors, each one closed and bearing no signs of life. A part of me wanted to call out again, see if I wasn't alone, but I sensed the urgency of silence. The invitation echoed in my mind, ominous and taunting. "Are you ready to play?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My instincts told me to go back, to find Mrs. Lang, but curiosity gripped me. Maybe this was part of the game. I quickly moved down the hallway, glancing at each closed door. One of them might lead to answers, maybe even Colin. As I reached the end of the hallway, I spotted a door slightly ajar. A weak light flickered from within. I nudged it open, heart pounding. Inside, I found a vast room filled with bookshelves, but they weren't like the usual shelves I knew. These ones looked ancient, the wood warped and the spines faded. In the center of the room stood a table, and on it lay a chessboard. The pieces were set, the king and queen placed directly across from one another. I felt drawn to the board, an inexplicable pull to pick up a piece. But as I moved closer, I noticed something odd about the game. The pieces were arranged not in a traditional formation, but in a chaotic jumble. That was when I saw it. A small, handwritten note taped to the chessboard. My hands trembled as I snatched it up. The message was chilling. Every move counts. Don't let fear decide. Fear gripped me again. I clutched the note tightly in my fist, my mind racing. Was this a warning? A challenge? Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching from the hallway. I whipped around, ready to flee, but I was too late. The door burst open, and two figures stepped into the room. The first was Colin, and the second was Jenna. Both wore expressions I couldn't read. "Welcome to the game," Jenna said, a smirk playing on her lips. That fleeting moment of hope, I had vanished. I was trapped, and they were my opponents. Colin looked worn, his eyes darting between Jenna and me. I wanted to run to him, to beg him to escape with me, but the way Jenna stood there, arms crossed, watching us like a hawk, kept my feet glued to the floor. "What do you mean, the game?" I finally asked, desperate for answers. Jenna pushed a lock of hair behind her ear, her demeanor unnervingly composed. "It's simple. We're going to play a game of chess, but the stakes are higher than usual." "What do you mean?" I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper. Colin stepped forward, eyes pleading. "We didn't have a choice. After all the things that happened, we thought this was the only way to stop it." "Stop what?" I felt like I was missing a crucial part of the story, a piece that could explain why we were standing in a dim room with a strange chess game. "The rules are straightforward," Jenna cut in, her smile unsettling. "You make a move on the board, and the consequences will unfold. You'll see." I glanced at the chessboard again, my heart pounding. The pieces were so oddly arranged, it made me uneasy. "What are the consequences?" I asked. "Let's just say," Jenna said, her tone sugary sweet. "If you lose more than just a game." Just then, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of the room, a strange symbol etched into the wall, half hidden by the shadows. It looked like a mix of a chess piece and something else I couldn't quite identify. "What's that?" I pointed, uncertainty twisting inside me. Colin shifted uncomfortably. "It's part of the game. The Board of Decisions, we called it. It represents all the choices we've made, and now we're trapped because of them." "What are you talking about?" I felt the weight of fear pressing harder against my chest. Before Colin could respond, Jenna stepped closer to the chessboard. "Enough questions. It's time to play." I hesitated, my mind racing. "What happens if I refuse?" Jenna grinned, her expression both playful and sinister. "Refusing isn't an option. We all have roles to play, and the game demands your participation." Adrenaline surged through me. I couldn't let Jenna control me. "What if I don't believe in the game?" "Ah," she said, one finger tapping her chin. "Then you might just discover that the game believes in you." As the tensions escalated, a sudden noise echoed through the hallway, making all three of us freeze. The sound of shuffling footsteps advanced toward the door. I could sense a presence lurking just outside, something sinister. "What was that?" I breathed. Jenna rolled her eyes. "Just keep your eye on the board. It's only going to get more interesting from here." Before I could process what was happening, the door creaked open again. My heart raced as a shadowy figure stepped into the room. The fresh wave of dread sent shivers down my spine. "Who are you?" I spat out, clenching my fists at my sides. But instead of an answer, the figure grinned, revealing a face I never expected to see. An old friend, long presumed lost to this twisted scene. "Are you ready to play?" they echoed eerily. And with that, I realized my nightmare was only just beginning. I stared at the figure, every instinct screaming at me to run. It was Adam, my childhood friend, but his familiar grin felt twisted. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice shaking slightly. "I thought you—" He stepped into the light, and I could see the shadows under his eyes. "Thought I was gone?" "Well, it's more complicated than that." Behind him, Jenna's expression shifted to one of glee. "Look who decided to show up, the wild card." Colin glanced between us, his expression a mix of confusion and fear. "Adam, you shouldn't be here. You know what they want." "I came to help," Adam said, but his voice held an unsettling edge. "Help? The word twisted in my mind. Was I supposed to trust him? I took a deep breath, forcing the panic to subside. Help? How? Adam turned toward the chessboard, where the pieces lay in unsettling disarray. By playing. You need to make a move, Sarah. Otherwise... Otherwise what? I interrupted, dread creeping back in. Enough games, Jenna said, tapping her fingers on the edge of the board. It's time for fate to take its course. I stepped back, my heart racing as I tried to assess my surroundings. The room felt like a trap closing in. The walls were too close, heavy with the weight of unseen possibilities. I'm not playing your game, Jenna. Adam shook his head, his expression growing serious. You have to, Sarah. It's the only way to break the cycle. What cycle? I demanded. What are you talking about? What are you all afraid of? Every choice leads us down a different path, Colin said softly. His voice was filled with desperation. And we've made all the wrong ones. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above, making the floor vibrate beneath us. The noise pulled my attention upward, and I felt the air thicken with tension. What was that? I asked, my voice rising in fear. It's part of the game, isn't it? Jenna teased, but her eyes darted toward the door. Don't dwell on it. Focus on the moves. But I couldn't take my eyes off the doorway. The presence I had felt earlier was now a suffocating weight in the air. I felt like something was watching, waiting to pounce. Make a choice, Sarah. Your next move could change everything, Adam urged, his gaze urgent. I looked back at the chessboard. The pieces stared back at me, taunting me with their silent challenge. My hands trembled as I reached out, but then the lights flickered. The room plunged into darkness. Sarah! Colin shouted, and I could hear the panic creeping into his voice. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. Where was Jenna? Where was Adam? Panic ignited within me, and I stumbled backward, feeling for a wall that wasn't there. Then I heard a low whisper echoing through the darkness. It's time to choose. A flash of light suddenly illuminated the room, revealing the board once more, with new pieces in place. My chest tightened as I realized that I hadn't just entered a game. I was becoming part of something much darker. That's when I saw it, a new figure standing behind me, cloaked in shadows, ready to claim its spot in this twisted game. I turned to face whatever this was, and in that moment, I knew that the real game was just beginning. My breath caught in my throat as I faced the cloaked figure. It stood tall, its outline shifting like smoke. Instinctively, I stepped back, my mind racing. Who was this? What did it want? The chessboard loomed before me again, the pieces arranged differently. Was I supposed to understand something from this? I blinked, trying to bring some clarity to the chaos around me. Sarah, don't. Step away from it. Adam's voice cut through the tension. I could hear the urgency behind his words. But the shadowy figure didn't move. It loomed there, as if waiting for me to make the next decision. I felt a swell of anger rising. What do you want from me? I shouted, my voice echoing in the stark silence. Jenna's laughter broke the stillness, like glass shattering. Look at her, so naive. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The mockery in her tone sent chills down my spine. Colin shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. Jenna, stop. If you push her... Push her where? She interrupted, smirking. This is all about choice, isn't it? Isn't that what you all wanted? I glanced back at Adam. His face was pale, almost ghostly. What she's saying is real, Sarah. You have to choose. You have to own your decision. But how could I own a decision I didn't understand? I felt like a puppet, stringed and controlled, and I was scared that any move I made would lead to disaster. The figure shifted slightly, and I noticed its hand was outstretched, the fabric of its cloak swirling like mist. I opened my mouth to ask what it wanted, but the air in the room felt heavy, laden with dread. Tell me what you want, I screamed, frustration boiling over. But instead of words, the figure slowly pointed at the chessboard. Sarah, focus, Adam urged, his voice more frantic. The pieces are your only guide. Don't let the darkness pull you in. I glanced back at the board, desperate. I had to understand. Each piece now had a new meaning etched into my mind. Stories from my childhood, incidents that I couldn't explain, moments that felt insignificant, but now loomed large. That's when I remembered the first odd incident. The time I found the old music box in the attic, playing a haunting tune all by itself. I shivered. Was this connected? A vision flashed before me. My neighborhood, the familiar streets feeling foreign. The day we lost that cat, how the shadows seemed to whisper its name. And the time Jenna and I dared each other to knock on the foreboding door down the street, only to find it open with no one inside. The realization struck me like lightning. Each of those moments was a choice, a pivot point. Damn it, Adam! I turned to the familiar face of my childhood friend, frustration and confusion locked in a battle. What happened to those choices? What does it mean? It means you have to confront them, Sarah. They're the only way out, Adam said, urgency lacing his voice. As the shadowy figure closed in, I sensed the walls beginning to shift again. Time felt like it was slipping away. A new clarity dawned on me. I had to make a move. I took a step toward the board, filled with a determination I didn't fully understand. Then everything went dark again. The sound of laughter echoed all around me, but it wasn't Jenna's. It was a deeper, more sinister sound. I felt myself being pulled into that darkness, unsure if I would make it back to the light. Just as panic settled in, a light flickered on, revealing not just the room, but a new reality of the board and a piece that had never been there before. I froze. There it was, my missing move, the one I was afraid to make. I took a steadying breath and focused on the chess piece that now sat before me, a queen shining like a lighthouse in the fog of chaos. It felt different from the others, imbued with hope and defiance, almost urging me to claim it as my own. Was this how I could break through the desperation that gripped the room? Sarah, you have to choose, Colin reminded me, his voice strained but steady. The pressure of the moment hung in the air as I weighed the decision like life and death. I couldn't turn back now. I had to confront the past, my childhood, and all the tangled memories that had haunted me for so long. I reached for the queen. My fingers brushed its smooth surface as if it were a talisman capable of protecting me from the darkness. I'll make a move, but on my terms, I declared, drawing the piece close to my heart. The shadows seemed to recoil momentarily, as if startled by my conviction. What are you going to do? Jenna screeched, an edge of panic creeping into her confident demeanor. I'm not afraid of you, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. You can't control me anymore. With firm resolve, I placed the piece on the board. The instant it touched the surface, light erupted around me, flooding the room with blinding brilliance. I staggered back, half expecting the room to collapse, but instead, the chessboard transformed, sending vibrations through my feet as it glowed intensely under my command. The shadows twisted and writhed, fighting against the light. I couldn't see clearly, but I could feel the weight of the world shift. Energies were being pulled, lifted. The presence of the cloaked figure faltered, caught in the brilliance. Suddenly, I realized I didn't have to play their game. I could make my own moves. Perhaps I would break free from the cycle they represented. Then came the laughter again, but this time it was different. It came from a darker place, the sound rippling with malice as Jenna and Colin recoiled. "What have you done? You're not supposed to win!" Jenna shrieked as the shadows around her began to crack and splinter. "I'm just starting to play," I yelled back, defiance roaring in my chest. I saw flashes of memories, my childhood friends, laughter in the park, bitter adventures, and unspoken fears. Faces that seemed lost, but were now rising against the dark. They joined me, spirit strong, echoing the life that once flourished across those streets. "I make my own choices," I declared, summoning everything I had buried. A sudden wash of warmth enveloped me, drawing from the memories, the joy, the innocence I thought I might have lost forever. As the brightness consumed the room, soft whispers emerged from the shadows, no longer threatening but encouraging. "Remember," they said, "you control your reality." The darkness churned violently, desperately pulling the shadows back into the corners where they belonged. The luminous light enveloped me, and before I could grasp what was happening, I was propelled forward, escaping the turmoil. And just like that, I woke up. I gasped, sitting up in bed, bathed in morning light. My heart raced, but it wasn't fear that flooded through me. A quiet strength imbued everything. Glancing around the room, I struggled to verify if it had all been a dream. The laughter, the games, everything I had confronted wasn't just fear. It was part of growing up, part of facing the darker decisions of life that lingered in the shadows. Yet deep inside, something remained unsettled. I still felt the pull. What had really happened, and what lingered out there in the neighborhood? I rose from bed, my feet touching the familiar wooden floor. Grounded. Then without a second thought, I headed to the window and pulled back the curtain. The sunlight shone brightly, illuminating the empty streets outside, but the chill still lingered in the air. A lingering uncertainty, a question that I had to confront. Something was still watching. I thought about the dreams, the memories, and the choices yet to be made. The shadows were lurking, but I would face them differently now. After all, I had survived the game. Would I dare to return to the park where it all began? Or was it safer to just let the past remain? For the first time in years, I felt a mixture of both dread and anticipation coursing through me. The only question was, had I truly escaped, or was this just the beginning?